Can a $1,000 bike do the same things as a $15,000 bike? Have you seen some of the prices on bicycles lately? Here's a specialized S-Works Speed of Light collection. I guess your sponsors can buy it for you if you're going to the Olympics. But this is a top-level full suspension dream bike. What if we find a good quality hardtail? The Cannondale FSI High Mod 1. And now the motorcycle manufacturers are getting into the e-bike game. Here's the Ducati TK1RR, a relative deal at 15k Canadian. And it has a motor. If that's too rich for you, you can get the down-spec version in the MiG S for a mere 7,700 Canadian. Pocket change. What's the point of this depressing exercise? To make you think that you'll never be able to afford another bicycle? No, you can still get a decent bike for $1,000. It may not have the bling bling components, but it will still do the things you want to do, and more. One thing about this Hiboy P7, it wasn't built to be a bling bling bike. This $900 US or $1,200 Canadian e-bike is basically a city commuter meant to take you to work, shopping, and out for some recreational rides. Oftentimes we're told that in order to enjoy an activity we have to have the highest end stuff, but this bike, low price and all, still managed to do all the things that the expensive bikes do, including some intermediate level off-roading, something it wasn't really designed for. Yeah, the P7 is a city commuter, but if you watch my channel, you know that I like taking things to extremes, and that's what I did with this bike. So, if you're curious about how far you can push a sub $1,000 US e-bike before you overwhelm it, stay tuned. And as always, if you're enjoying the content, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with friends. The Hiboy P7 is a Class 3 e-mountain bike that sports an aluminum frame, 27.5-inch wheels, and a 500-watt motor powered by a 48-volt 15-amp-hour battery. The drivetrain is Shimano and 9-speed, a step above the standard 7-speed groups that come on most budget bikes. And the brakes are mechanical discs, which are lighter than hydraulic brakes, but also less powerful. However, they do not perform as badly as some mechanical brakes because this bike only weighs 56 pounds, around 15 to 30 pounds less than comparable fat mountain bikes. More on that later. The Hiboy P7's 500-watt motor feels slightly less powerful than the 750-watt motors that come on some of the more expensive fat-tired competitors, but the difference is not as pronounced as you might expect. This bike has 5 pedal modes as well as throttle-only operation and tops out at 37 to 38 km per hour, just over 23 miles per hour, which is in the same range as 750-watt bikes. Two factors account for this, and they are both a result of efficiency. The first is weight, which I've already mentioned. The P7 is a standard mountain bike and saves pounds by not having enormous fat wheels. Fat bike rims and tires weigh a ton, and rotating mass takes a lot more energy to accelerate and stop than static mass. That's why on a bicycle or motorcycle, lightening up the wheels results in far greater performance gains than shaving the same amount of weight off the frame. And so the mechanical brakes still do a decent job of hauling this bike down from speed, while the same brakes feel less effective on a fat bike. So the P7's lighter wheels are a part of the equation, and the other part is the rolling resistance. Standard mountain bike tires offer a lot less of it than fat bike tires. This is what gives a standard e-bike a huge advantage over a fat e-bike. Let's say that you go out for a longer ride and you end up running out of battery. On a fat e-bike, good luck. I've reviewed some great bikes that weighed 80 to 90 pounds, and let me tell you, good luck pedaling those home without pedal assist. Of all the e-bikes that I've tested, the P7 feels the most like a regular bicycle when the pedal assist is off. Yes, it's heavier than a regular mountain bike, but doesn't feel that different than a standard mountain bike without pedal assist. In fact, if you take out the battery to lighten it up, you have a decent pedal bike, something that can be said for other e-bicycles. And this is why Hiboy was able to get away with putting a 15 amp hour battery on it and still getting about the same range as fat e-bikes with 18 to 20 amp hour batteries. Those bikes tend to get 60 to 70 miles or 100 to 120 kilometers of range on lower pedal assist settings, and from the reports I've heard, the P7 is similar. I did not verify this myself because it's wintertime where I live and a ride that long would have turned me into an icicle, but based on how much battery power was left after my shorter rides, I believe it. It takes less power to propel this bike forward than one with a bigger battery and fat wheels, and so a smaller battery is enough. Then, the lighter bike and battery demands less from the frame, which can also be built lighter, thus continuing the cycle and making this cycle more efficient. So far the P7 has a lot of upside. It's inexpensive while giving up very little performance to bikes that are twice as pricey. Instead of building it up and putting on a bigger battery, Hiboy chose to make it lighter and more efficient, which makes it easier to move, lift, and carry on a sturdy hitched bicycle carrier. Take out the battery, which weighs about 9.5 pounds, I weighed it, and you have a 47-pound machine. Not light, but a sturdy bike rack can handle it. Aside from that, it also handles well, like a standard commuter bike. But the promotional materials are showing this thing as much more than a commuter. I see pictures of it riding single track, going up steep hills, carrying big loads. It's rated for a max of 265 pounds, and generally being aimed at an outdoorsy recreational lifestyle. So, of course, I decided to give it a serious test and headed for my local single track. Now, I have to point out that this bicycle is a hardtail, no rear suspension. And while this is a class of bikes that is generally aimed at smooth and flowy terrain, the trails I went on weren't. Smooth and flowy, that is.
Yeah. That's pretty good. Ooh.
These are dirt bike trails that are also occasionally tackled by mountain bikers. They were built by the local dirt bike club, of which I am a member, and are suited to dirt bike suspensions, which are far superior to even the most advanced mountain bike suspension. The Hiboy P7 has zero rear suspension and only very basic front suspension, on which I had to dial up the spring preload to handle this stuff. So how did the P7 do? Not bad. Yes, it clanked over some of the rougher roots and rocks, but it made it through. The brakes hold it down from speed even down the steeper hills, though they did require a strong squeeze. The rather pavement-biased tires handled traction well, and the forks, well, they were the limiting factor. They're not plush or long travel, so they clanked down the trail the entire way. But they did make it through, though I had to take it decidedly slow on the rougher patches. Do not bomb gnarly downhills on this bike, it ain't suited for that. Take it slow and you'll be fine. Aside from that, the Hiboy P7 is a relatively light and well-performing city commuter and a decent light-duty e-mountain bike that will surprise you with its versatility at an excellent price. It looks good with clean welds, has 9 speeds instead of the 7 that even its more expensive competitors offer, is easy to move around, easy to charge with a battery in or out of the bike, and could be your only bicycle if your budget or space is tight. What would I improve? The mechanical brakes are decent, but hydraulic ones are always better. The P7's lower mass, especially lower rotating mass, allows it to get away with the use of mechanical brakes, but the levers do require a strong squeeze to stop quickly. However, I do recognize that hydraulic brakes would raise the price of this bike significantly, so if you're building to a certain price target, some sacrifices are necessary. I doubt that there is a similarly priced competitor on the market that offers hydraulic stoppers. Additionally, the fork is soft and basic and is definitely not made for gnarly double diamond trails. Crank up that spring if you're going to use it for anything harder than riding over a lawn. It does have a handy lockout feature which makes the bike handle much cleaner on pavement when closed. As well, if you intend to ride on beach sand, you're better off on a fat bike. I went blasting through some dunes on this puppy and can assure you that fat wheels and tires do better on this type of terrain. Still fun though. The P7's display is basic, but about what you'd expect in this price range. Some of the fancy color displays on more expensive bikes are nice to look at, but that is why those bikes cost twice as much. The wide handlebar is great for mountain biking as it gives the rider plenty of leverage in tight turns, but if you're primarily going to use the P7 as a city commuter, you may want to swap it out for something narrower, which will make it easier to slip through tight gaps in traffic. Finally, the low price of this bike necessitates a couple of sacrifices. There is no rear light where pricier competitors offer one that also brightens or flashes when you apply the brakes. You can buy a cheap chargeable red light and put it on your seat post to enhance safety. Also, there is no luggage rack for panniers. To me, a shopping commuter should have that capability. The frame comes with drilled holes to attach a rack, and personally, I'd be willing to pay a little bit more just to get one with the P7. Most buyers would like to have a rack, and because the price of this bike is so low, there is room to add that accessory as standard. So there it is. It's comforting to know that if you want a decent e-bicycle, you don't need to be a multi-millionaire. One good thing about competition that benefits the consumer is that it forces competitors to offer a good product at an excellent price, and Hiboy is one of those companies. Is the P7 the bike you should take to bomb down the whole Enchilada Trail in Moab, Utah, or gnarly downhill in British Columbia? No. But for 99% of consumers, it is the only bike they will need for the vast majority of activities, from practical ones like commuting and shopping to recreational ones like riding paved trails, back roads, and some light off-roading. If I was a student or a young guy just starting my career, and I wanted to have a fun cycling experience but still put money away for my future, the Hiboy P7 would be an attractive choice of e-bike to consider. Are you looking for a bicycle or even a utilitarian motorcycle that does most of the things that the high-end, big-name model does without breaking the bank? What machine do you have your eye on? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Ride safe, and may the spokes be with you.
Wow, pretty damn good. Crazy.